So, was it the Russians? Fact, yes. Was it Russia? Opinion, absolutely not. I doubt that Russia would do something like this, but again, who am I? It's just my opinion. Now, unless you really read the tone of what the Russian politicians said, and they didn't come out and say, we're actually going to attack Estonia, but they did like what the people in Russia and the Russian people around the world were doing. In fact, one of the attackers was a Russian-born, a Russian Estonian who just did the ping thing. So we knew it wasn't a compromised host. It was actually somebody who was participating in the attack. He was picked up by the police. Nothing happened with this later on, but people will be fired up about this. So Estonian politicians, that's a whole different issue. If you listen to them, they used to say, it's the Russians, it's Russia, for a good reason too. But politicians, if we have to ignore them for a second, which is sometimes useful, at least when talking about technology, then I would have to say it's not Russia. Now, what I call an unwitting zombie fifth column, I've been looking for this definition for a long time. How do I define your computer over there, all of our computers, whether it's a botnet or it's Winnie or it's any other compromised machine around the country? How do we define that? How do we define a soldier that may be still working for you, is not a spy, is not a traitor, it's not friendly fire, but at the same time is working for the enemy? I haven't gotten that far yet, but the fifth column, if you like, is a very good definition. Adding unwitting and zombie is mine. So a fifth column is basically, there are different stories about how this started. Some of them are with Lev Trotsky in Russia. But it's usually affiliated with the Spanish Civil War, where a general there said, when asked about the size of his army, I have 4 columns, but I have a 5th one, and he's in the streets of Madrid. Whether it was referring to infiltrated soldiers or to the people of Madrid, I don't know. But that's where it right now comes from. And this comes from, my information comes from Wikipedia in English and in Hebrew that says completely different things. So the second thing that I went through was biological warfare example. The biological warfare example. For example, let's say example again. If I do trade with prisoners of war, and I infect mine with some sort of disease, then that would be somewhat similar, wouldn't it? And botnets and Winnie, we discussed that. And there is, of course, Martin van Crevel, who spoke about countries versus organizations in war. But this is about populations attacking. This is just a concept that I'm currently developing beyond what's been developed so far. But it's something that happened in Estonia. And I find it very interesting to consider again that our most important infrastructure is our citizens, our own PCs, and not just ours, but around the world. And how do we even start to protect ourselves from that? But not everything is lost. So what was the attacker's strategy in all of this? There are many, many different things to consider. I, unfortunately, don't have the time to go through all of them, but just a few of them. So cyber terrorism versus cyber riot or internet riot. Cyber terrorism has been referred to many things in the past, but what's actually been happening is different groups of hackers coming together and defacing sites or launching DDoS attacks, etc. Now, online, we have seen this blogosphere go live. And just consider for a second, if you're a part of a mob, how can you influence it if you're alone? If you try to move a little bit to the right, would the mob move with you? If there are 20 more people with you, would the mob move with you a little bit to the right? If you actually go and shout, down with that statue, would the statue fall? Probably. So what about online? This is really similar to mob control, mass psychology. Using the internet to create an online mob has proven itself. This will receive more attention. This is taking psychological warfare, this is taking deception, this is taking intelligence warfare and really making it active, proactive. And online mob control, just think about that. Now, the two ideas are attacking from outside of the country and from inside of the country or organization network. Very simple to understand, very critical when actually used. Attacking the business and private infrastructure. I don't believe that demands any explanation. Attacking the routing infrastructure. This comes last. Doesn't really require much of an explanation. But what about the defender's strategy? So again, their goal was maintain the regular service and the stability of the country's internet, the country's infrastructure. Very simple goal. Now, Clausewitz actually discusses defense and attacks, the attacker and defender, and which is more powerful. Following Estonia, and again, I can't really go into it right now, that doesn't seem to be the case online. He believes that defense is more powerful. Again, all the Clausewitzians in the crowd are probably going to run at me. He believes defense is more powerful because the more the time goes into the attack, the more the attacker needs to maintain logistical lines of support. The more the defense has time to organize their powers and the strengths and everything. So that's something to consider. Not sure if it's true online, but whether it is or it isn't, what I learned about online warfare is that it is not, and this is a question that I've been trying to answer for a very long time, it is not regular warfare. Meaning, and I may be wrong, and maybe change my mind by next week, it is not the same, analogous to the difference between aerial warfare and marine warfare. Both types of the same warfare. Many of the lessons, many of the strategies will still work, many won't. Is there a battlefield? War is not always war. It can just be fighting. We've seen many fighting around the world that wasn't war, and that fighting can be a part of a real war. But actual information warfare, when it comes to actual computers and networks, I'm sorry, currently doesn't seem to be the same. And the one thing that I really can say about all this, that whatever conclusions I did come to so far, over the years, and from this case specifically with all the case studies I can pull out of it, is that the niches, nothing is 100%, the niches themselves can become the main thing. Things can change very rapidly. Now, the defender's strategy, you already heard some of it, right? And to be honest, it really needs to be told as a story. I don't want to do it in slides. Slides always get in my ways. So, this is the best part. Strategies and tactics. So, crowd control, right? In street riots, I heard that some places, and this is just a rumor, I haven't actually seen that. In Paris, for example, you would see the police pushing the crowd away, trying to make the riot dissipate. This in some cases works, in some cases it doesn't, but it causes the problem to basically, let's break the windows in every store in the street and put it all on fire. What they did in Estonia with the riots in the streets is they actually contained the situation. Basic incident response. Long before we started with incident response online, incident response existed with physical security. And first responders basically know until, again, depending on what the incident response force is actually capable of and what they're allowed to do. What the policymakers decide is when you jump to an incident, if you're incapable of actually doing anything for whatever reason, contain it. Other forces will come and take care of it later. Maybe it will be a negotiator, maybe it will be special forces. So in Tallinn, they contained the situation. Now, this is really, all the way down, the cultural importance. Culture has a very important role online for some reason when fighting. This is more police work, but still. So they closed the crowd in the liquor area. The crowd was Russian. 5 a.m., everybody went home to sleep. And all the stores had no liquor left in them. So, very culture specific. When we go online and look at some of what they did, we can look at the president's website. The president over there is the queen. Much like in Israel, it's a figure, someone who is important for the country but is not running the country. That's the prime minister. Don't quote me in Wikipedia. I don't actually know how the Estonian political system works. So the president's website went down, and they met with the president and they spoke with him and they said, well, so? I mean, the president's website is important. This is a PR issue, it's a saving face issue, it's pride, really, and Estonians are very proud people. But they had to use their resources correctly. They had to make sure the banks remain online. So if the president's website, with all respect to the president and Estonia, will be down for a week, again, same tone. So, I'm not sure it would be the same case in the United States, in Israel, or anywhere else. Culture specific, very interesting. And then there is the parliament's mail systems, and they practically drew the line. They said, we hold the line. If this server goes down, we'll bring it back up. We'll do whatever it takes. Whether that system was more important or whether they just chose arbitrarily, I'll leave for you to decide right now, although the answer is pretty clear. What do attackers usually do when they see the site they attacked is going back up? Can anybody suggest? Oh, come on! They take it back down. They attack again. So the Estonians brought it back up. They got pissed, the attackers got pissed and said, no, that can't happen. Let's attack again. And what actually happened was, many of the attackers concentrated on one website, on one target, leaving the banks and everyone else alone. Interesting, isn't it? It's basically deception. And down there you see something in Hebrew. I didn't actually quote exactly where it's from. It's from the Bible, and I'm sorry I don't have the English version with me. But it basically means, do war using tricks and cunning. And the Estonians seem to know this very well. None of these strategies seem to be anything that the Estonians or the attacking Russians, not Russia, did on purpose. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I know on the Estonian side that for sure they didn't. But looking at the incident, especially from the side, it's the first time I'm actually able to see some strategies, some tactics, take them back and analyze them. So, they were able to first divide their forces so they're where they are needed, Clausewitz again, and then they were able to put the line and defend the parliament's website, creating deception and drawing the attackers to attack only that point, while they're basically working on their defenses. They didn't do it on purpose, but they did. Very interesting. And this actually, when analyzing it, doesn't work 100%. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the broken windows theory from New York City. They came up with this, and then Giuliani made it much bigger. It basically says, if one window is broken, this was about graffiti in New York City, then tomorrow, and it's left broken, tomorrow morning the entire street will have broken windows in it. I still didn't follow what the meaning is, so a friend of mine put it in these terms, and I'm sorry if I'm insulting anybody. I'm enjoying this though. So when you enter